Hi, everyone. My name is Grace Smith for the Wise News Network, and today we have a very special guest. Her name is Lindsay Gillette Lee, and she's the owner of Getting Good with Your Health. How are you doing today, Lindsay?
I'm awesome. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so
Good.
much for agreeing to be interviewed and for reaching out to us as well. We always enjoy getting pitches about important community events that are coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about yours?
So my event, Getting Good with Your Health, it is a health fair slash pop-up shop that I wanted to start. I got the idea while I was in the hospital last year after being diagnosed with cervical cancer. And January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month. And after going through what I went through, I realized the importance of getting the information out there to the community about how important it is for the HPV vaccine to be given to children at the right age and getting information about cervical cancer, period, because there's so many people, especially in my age group, that had no idea about the HPV vaccine or how important it is.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And you mentioned your diagnosis.
Yes.
How long how long did you sit with that diagnosis before you realized that you wanted to take action and start spreading this advocacy?
So I got my diagnosis officially on November 2nd of last year. And it took me a minute for me to actually get it because my birthday is November 13th and I was still planning for my birthday. It was in my head. And I was still like, okay, I'll be out of here and I'll still be able to go through with my birthday plans. But November 9th is the day that I was officially staged. And that's when it became real. So, in talking to my friends and my family, I opened up a little bit about what was going on because I'm very honest and I keep everything to the forefront. I like to tell everybody what's going on with me, and I didn't want to hold it in. So I let my friends and family know. And I was surprised by so many people that reached out and either told me that they had HPV at some point in their life or that they had cervical cancer at some point in their life and they went through it alone. And that's when I knew that I had to speak up and do something about it.
I know you're involved in cervical cancer advocacy. How
Yeah.
has getting involved with that helped you with this process?
I when I first got involved, at first when I found out I had cancer, I was like, no, I wasn't gonna share it. I was, like normal people. I wanted to, I didn't want people to feel sorry for me, so I didn't want anyone to know. But then I started because it hit me so hard, like I'm still in the battle. So then I thought about it. I don't want anyone to go through what I'm going through, and if I can save someone. So that's what my fight changed. I already had a nonprofit. I
Mhm.
always was already doing stuff in the community. So I just started pushing my story. So just started going around with my friends, classmates, co-workers, and sharing my story because I was overall a healthy person. I was running 5 miles every morning before I got cervical cancer. But what saved me, I got COVID first.
Okay.
Yep. So remember when they were saying if you have COVID and you have an underlying illness,
Mhm.
that's how I found out I had cervical cancer. I had COVID for like 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and that was because of the underlying cancer,
Yep.
and wow.
Yep.
I've heard a lot of stories about how people got diagnosed with illnesses because their COVID extended for such a long period of time, which is very common with people with those conditions. Um, wow, that is very interesting. It's kind of crazy how all of that just happened just right then and there. Do you know how long the cancer had been in your system before the diagnosis?
You know what? I was having like symptoms probably a year before COVID hit.
Okay.
And I kept telling people, no, this couldn't be normal. Something have to be wrong. But another thing that I found out when I went to a cervical cancer retreat, I found out every last one of us was diagnosed during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
That I find that kind of strange. Like every one of us in 2020 during
Yeah,
COVID.
that is
Yeah.
interesting because around that time, I actually remember a lot of studies coming out about people getting diagnosed with cervical cancer, but in their like throat, like men. And one of my mom's good friends, she grew up a swimmer, and her good friend's husband passed away of cervical cancer of like the throat. It's the same
Yep.
kind of cancer. You get it the same kind of way, but just and that was all happening during COVID too, which is very interesting. It seems like there was an uptick in diagnoses around that time. And I wonder what the correlation is. I could probably look into that a little bit during my research as well. And how has starting this organization helped you in your healing journey, not just physically, but also mentally?
So each time I share my story, I'm always enlightened and surprised and empowered by how people plug me in. So if I tell my story, I have somebody that'll email me or inbox me and say, "Hey, I have a friend or a cousin or a daughter who got this diagnosis or is going to the doctor and saw something a little strange or a little weird." And they plug me in and they say, "Hey, I have somebody who went through this and maybe you need to talk to her." That makes me feel like me telling my story is important and me telling my story is something I need to keep doing.
Wow, that is truly inspiring. Thank you. And how, I mean, obviously, it's just a horrendous disease. You have to go through so much after a diagnosis. But what are the different ways in which cervical cancer has left a mark on your life?
It's definitely left an impact because I've never experienced anxiety the way I do now. I never used to be scared to go to the doctor. I was never frightened to go get checkups, and now it's traumatic for me. It's traumatic in a way where I didn't allow for my husband to be my husband in that type of way because it's very traumatic. To have so many people into an intimate part of your body is very traumatic. It's currently still something I'm working through. Mentally, it's traumatic because it's so many questions as to what did you do wrong, especially when you're a healthy person. Have you never had any other problems big to where you had to stay in the hospital or be on constant medication or go through every machine that there is on earth? And so it's very traumatic to go through, and dealing with the anxiety is hard. It's hard to go to the doctor and not cry when you know you have an upcoming appointment or upcoming scan. When you see my chart show up in your email, the nerves start. So it's something that I'm dealing. It's definitely left a lasting impact, but it's also the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing because I don't want anybody to go through what I'm going through. And I definitely don't want people to feel like they're alone.
How does getting involved in the arts help somebody when they're going through a traumatic time?
Absolutely. So I have a background in the arts from second grade all the way through college. I did art, music, dance, photography, fashion design, all kinds of artistic. I express myself in so many different ways. So I remember in college when I was going through a tough time, I have a degree in theater and it was so therapeutic for me. When I think about drawing, sometimes it's therapeutic for me. So I always think about when I think about what we want to provide for our survivors, caregivers, and even the community, because even within our community, there are survivors, maybe in other ways, or caregivers, right? Maybe not for cancer, but in other ways. And so it's just therapeutic. And I want people to have that cathartic experience so that they can move on. But it also allows us an opportunity to bring awareness. So whenever we have these events, we also, I have a friend who passed away. She had an organization from a different type of cancer, right? She passed away from a different type of cancer, but it was a gynecologic cancer, ovarian. And she had this project called the Sunshine Box Project. And so we would our organization would collect items and host wrapping parties for her and donate them back to her. And when she was transitioning, I made a promise to her that we would continue doing that. So we continue to collect items, we wrap them, and we give them in little, bags or gift boxes or whatever to any type of cancer patient. It doesn't matter, male or female. And these events that we have, these workshops or whatever, it allows us to have that conversation. People come maybe to give back. People come so that they can be creative. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we impart in them, about, HPV, cervical cancer, or the gynecologic cancers. And I always like to leave them with something that they can do. So, make sure that you're sharing with others, educating others about what you've learned today. Encouraging them to go to the doctor. One of our slogans is encourage healing. We want to encourage healing, mind, body, and soul. So those are some of the reasons why, we even do what my friend, the same friend, her name was Sharon Grimmer, and her business was called Fighting Cancer Inc. And she also did every Christmas she had was called Project Elf. And so we have these little elves from different organizations and individuals who would go up to the hospital and pass out gifts the week leading up to Christmas. And so when she passed, myself and another friend, our organizations, we gather people together to do this. And so just like Saturday, we are having our creative arts team is hosting an ornament drive. So we'll be creating ornaments that we will be taking to the hospital, but we're also going to be talking about music therapy and why it's so important, in helping us to heal. So hopefully that answered your question.
Absolutely. And you've been in remission since April.
Yes, April, I got my official NED, which stands for no evidence of disease. So that was April 3rd of this year. So currently in remission.
That is incredibly exciting. Can you tell me a little bit about how getting that news made you feel?
Triumphant. Yeah. I never once thought that I'm not going to beat this. So, I was always about what is the game plan? What are we doing about it? I'm a mom. I have 5 children and I wanted to be able to see my kids grow up. So I just stepped into action once they said, this is what's happening. Once I came to the realization, this is what's happening, I had to accept the fact that it's just a part of my journey, and my journey continues.
I'm sure your kids are very proud of you and all of the work that you've put in.
Oh, I hope so.
Oh, I'm
I
sure.
got teenagers, so you never know.
Oh, yeah. I have 2 teenage sisters as well. So,
right.
They're a little bit persnickety sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But to kind of bring it back to cervical cancer itself, it's a disease that can sneak up on you.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about what are some warning signs that young women in general, and people of all genders should be on the lookout for with this silent disease?
Right. So I didn't have any symptoms. As far as females go, there's not really too many symptoms, but there are little warning signs, warts. That's one of the warning signals. But for me, it started with bleeding. So I had excessive bleeding. Since I was younger, I've always had, my period was normal. I've never had any abnormal periods ever. It's always been exactly 28 days, like clockwork. The only time it was off was when I was pregnant. So that was a warning sign for me, because I knew that bleeding abnormally wasn't something that I was used to. I went to the ER immediately when it happened, because I was like, this is not something that I'm dealing with. However, when I went to the ER and they told me that my period was, maybe it's just changing because of age. So for a minute, I was elated. I really thought that I was going through menopause and it was about to be over. And I was ecstatic, like, oh, is this what happens, right before menopause? No more period. I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it turned out not to be that. Unfortunately, I will say another reason why I decided to speak so much about cervical cancer awareness is because we don't get the proper introduction to HPV. When HPV was brought up for me, when my daughter was in that age range, the doctor told me that the HPV shot was something that was optional.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it was presented to me. It was presented to me like it's an optional vaccine. And I asked what it was for, and they told me, well, when she's sexually active, it's for that. And when you're a parent of an 11-year-old, you're not thinking an 11-year-old is going to be sexually active anytime soon. So I told them, well, I'll let her make that decision. When she makes that decision for herself to become sexually active if she wants to get this vaccine, that's how it was presented. It was
Mm-hmm.
not presented as preventable cancer care. And that's important for parents to know.
Absolutely. It seems like there needs to be maybe a shift of the narrative when it
Absolutely.
comes to cervical cancer. Is that
Yes.
something you're hoping to achieve with
I'm
this
all
upcoming
about
event?
changing the narrative. Yes, that is definitely my goal, as far as not staying in a depressive state either. My goal this year was to change the narrative because last year was so traumatic and I didn't want to sit in that this year. So instead of being in the hospital last year and being upset and going through treatment this year, I went and celebrated this year, and I left North Carolina and we went on vacation, me and my husband, for both of our birthdays. That's changing the narrative,
Mhm.
going into places where you've cried and smile.
Absolutely. And now to kind of bring it back to the event itself, because we want to make sure this event gets as much coverage as we can possibly allow it.
Right.
Can you please tell me a little bit about what can people expect from this event? What's going to be happening?
So at this event, we're going to have Zumba to get your body moving. We're going to have somebody that's coming to do hydration and B12 shots. We have different tables set up with different types of information about different health issues. So we have cervical cancer, of course. We have my husband is going to be talking about testicular cancer. We have someone coming to talk about lupus. We've had different pop-up shops in the area that do. We have this woman that's coming and she does like a holistic approach to cancer diagnosis as well as other diseases. So just to highlight the small businesses in the area as well, but definitely medical information, how important it is to give blood, because transfusions was a big part of my healing as well. My iron was super low during all of this, and I had to have several blood transfusions. So it's important for people to give blood because that was definitely intricate to my healing as well. So a lot of different things going on, but basically just to get the awareness out there for cervical cancer.
And then kind of shifting gears a little bit more towards the event that is happening in January. Are you going to be attending?
So I am attending. I'll be attending with tealdiva.org, which is a gynecological cancer group here in the Charlotte metro area, although they have members all over. But I'll also be there, obviously, as a representative of survivors, CREVIVOR. January, of course, is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month. So most of us who are fairly active are running, events, fundraisers, and everything else for that. So I definitely am going down to support Lindsay. And then I'm also running my own fundraiser here in Union County as well. So we have found that if you decide that you want to be an advocate, you kind of go all in, which is great. So I'm definitely going down there to support her and then partake in some events here, as well as attend Cervical Cancer Summit, which is taking place in New York City at the end of the month, the end of January.
Okay. And what are some events that Teal Diva is going to be putting on in that same month?
Sure. So Teal Diva, their main focus used to be ovarian cancer, and now they are open to gynecological cancers. So to be fair, their month is actually September. But because she does have some cervical cancer members, she's kind of the organizer, Shannon Routh, is sort of trying to travel around and visit, other places and be a support and just really spread the news that Teal Diva is out there. So yeah, she's kind of going all over, but they will do more events later in the year. They do run a 5K in Charlotte. I believe that'll be in May. They used to run one. I don't know if they'll do it again next year in South Carolina, which is in the fall, and several other events throughout the year for fundraising.
It's very interesting. It seems like in tackling the issue of bringing advocacy towards cervical cancer, you're also helping bringing advocacy towards a multitude of different diseases
Right.
and illnesses, which
Absolutely.
I believe
Yeah.
that's very commendable.
Yes. So the goal is a healthier mind, body, and spirit.
And we've, of course, addressed this a little bit, but what is your ultimate desired goal and outcome with putting on an event like this?
To get the community talking about cervical cancer awareness, how important it is to get your child vaccinated with HPV shot, and just to get people talking about it and keeping everybody healthy and safe. That's my goal.
Incredible. And where can people donate if they want to support the cervical cancer cause, but they might not necessarily be available on the day of the event? How
Right.
can people still get involved and assist in this cause?
So I'm also a survivor. Survivor spelled with a C. It's a nonprofit organization, and I am one of those. So you can donate to Survivor on behalf of me. You can also donate to Getting Good with Your Health. Not a nonprofit yet, but you can donate to it as well, so we can continue to do this. My goal is to do every state. I have this event planned here in Shelby because this is where I live, but I also have another one planned in Houston for 2024, in Virginia, and New Jersey as
So
well.
this is just the beginning for
Just
you.
the beginning, yes.
That is incredible. And in these other states that you have these events lined up for, who's helping you out with these events in other states?
I have another survivor helping me out. Her name is Gwen. She is a stage 4 cancer thriver. We say thriver because she's currently still in treatment. And I'm originally from New Jersey, so of course I wanted to go to New Jersey to do one as well. So I have community members there that's helping me out. And in every state, I find a participant that's willing to help me do the extra mile of getting the word out about cervical cancer, mostly survivors.
Incredible. So if you are not in North Carolina, we still have a lot of different states that you can go and attend a very similar event to help such an incredible cause.
Yes.
Is there anything else you would like to add about your story or about the event itself?
Come out and support the event. It is happening January 6th, 2024, 11 to 3. Would love to see you all there.
And where specifically in Shelby?
It's at Hollyoak Park in Shelby at the Activity Center.
Thank you so much, and we hope to see you guys there.
Thank you all.
For the Wise News Network, I'm Grace Smith.